We're here in the new Student Support Services area of Mifflin High School. Before, these spaces were scattered throughout the building, and now students and counselors have a private space to access all of those student support services. We're sitting here in one of our 3 new extended learning areas at Mifflin High School. They're all furnished slightly differently to allow a different posture for students and staffs. Some of them are more focused around technology, some of them are more focused around lounge and conversation to allow students and teachers to pick the space that suits their needs for the day. We're standing in one of our completely refreshed classrooms here at Mifflin High School. Throughout, you'll see new flooring, new ceilings, new lighting, our new sound system that allows for an even sound distribution throughout the whole classroom, and furniture that was customized for each teacher to suit their needs. Looking at the refreshed auditorium space, you'll see new seating, new theater curtains, new lighting and sound system to support our next big production here at Mifflin High School. Here in the relocated weight room at Mifflin High School, we have combined the weight room and the health classroom. So you'll see state-of-the-art, new weight equipment combined with flexible furnishings to allow us to use this space for after-school events, as well as after-school weight and strength training. Moving into the art and construction technology spaces, which were both refreshed here, you can see in the art room, we've got completely new seating for 72 students, which supports both of our art classes. We've added a lot of built-in cabinets to support all of those art materials needed to do all of the different studio functions for our high school art students. Looking at our construction technology space, you'll see a brand new dust collection around the perimeter. This will allow us to keep a safe, clean environment to teach our students the critical skills to become part of our modern construction technology world. At this project, we left no stone unturned. As you walk through the building, you will see upgrades throughout. Our hallways have been completely painted, upgrading with new ceilings and new lighting. Our cafeteria space has been refreshed, all new furniture, all new flooring, and all new lighting. Our brand new gymnasium space has been equipped with everything we need for the next big game. We have new bleachers, new basketball hoops, and a completely refinished gymnasium floor. When you walked through Mifflin High School last school year, it was a dark, outdated, uninspiring space for our young learners. When you walk through this year, you'll see a bright, refreshed space that allows our students to dream big and achieve more this school year and many school years to come.
The record last year was 3-10 because we only have 5 players, and the record this year is 7-9.
We was gonna make a team at Lynn McKinley if we had a coach or if we didn't, and we're having people come to our games to come watch us play.
Share the ball a little bit more now, and I actually see the team as like a sisterhood.
To go into an actual program that does have those type of losses, you feel like there's no expectation. And I seen from previous games that I had looked at that they actually were talented.
Araciana, she loves to get buckets. Shy, she's strong with the ball. She'll body anybody. Faith, she brings the energy if we feeling down.
Denny is doing real good. I love Denny. I got to play with my sister this year. She's a freshman.
Marion Franklin, Christiana Towns, she had 35 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 steals. She averages 18.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, 6 steals per game. Her Mifflin game that we had, Tamaya Harrington, she had 27 points, 5 rebounds, 13 steals.
It makes me feel more confident. Start varsity as a freshman and play the whole game and make a lot of points with my teammates and a lot of assists.
Changing the culture means a lot to me. It makes me feel real good that people aren't just seeing Linden girls as trash. We here Monday through Saturday, so we really putting in the work, and I'm happy people are actually coming out and seeing us. We aren't just a team that's 3-10. We're an actual high school basketball team.
Once I actually did see Darthard and the program that he was actually running, and how he was uplifting and actually caring. Once they actually started to win games and to see their progress and to understand how much I did really care about them outside of just the game itself, it made them want to show up. It made them care. It made them want to actually work together and have a sisterhood to where they loved each other.
My brothers are Philip, LB, Chris, and Emmanuel. When I watch my brothers play, I look up to them, and I play against them a lot. So it makes me a little tougher to play against girls.
The town's name is very strong in the community, and she's living up to her name.
My goal for Lynn McKinley is to win more games and set an example for little kids.
Being a senior is pretty bittersweet that the program is just getting together, and I'm about to leave, but I'm happy it got together. Coach means a lot to me. She is actually my NOACAN advisor, so I be in her office a lot.
Miss Crenshaw, she makes sure I make it to individual workouts, things I need help with to be better.
She set up some team bonding for us. We do a lot of stuff on and off the court. I do enjoy playing against East since they are our rivals.
I have fun playing against Kennedy from Centennial, Kayla from Centennial, Layla from International.
For college, I would like to study stenography. College coaches should recruit me because I feel like I'm a good leader, I'm a good listener, and I have good discipline, and I can push myself.
She's always going to put 110% into whatever it is that she does. So a lot of the times whenever coaches are looking for that one player, that spark, Tamaya Harrington would be that person. I cannot wait to see the young woman that she's going to become.
I just want to do photography and still do basketball. College coaches should recruit me because I put all the work in. I'm very humble. I could make buckets, and I like to share the ball and communicate.
College coaches should recruit Christiana Towns because of her work ethic, the ability that she has, which is natural, and on top of that, she's very coachable. It's something different whenever you have someone to step on the court that has an athletic ability, that has a game that is different than a lot of players that do play the game, and you can still teach them something.
My name is William Stinchcomb, and I've been with the Columbus City Schools for 23 years.
My name is Mr. Dorsey Birdsong. I'm a safety and security specialist.
My name is Anita Roman, and I am a Columbus City Schools bus driver.
My name is Samuel Gonzalez. I'm a food service manager currently at Briggs High School.
I know that if I'm not there every day and on time, that student may not have a ride to school. And that weighs on me heavily. And I take pride in knowing that my students can set their clock on me. I'm always, it takes a lot for me not to come to work. It's important to come to work every day, be on time, because we may be the only way that student gets to school.
Seeing the kids years later and having them come up to me and say how thankful and grateful they were and happy that, I kept them safe in the district, and, that I can't retire or leave the district until their kids graduate.
This was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I didn't expect to live for this, but I love being part of the Columbus City School as a family. I just think because the building represents our districts, for me to see how clean the building is, I could take pride in my effort, and to put the cleaning and the organizing of the building, it just makes me feel a level of pride.
Peaceful mind can accomplish a lot of things. And when a student is hungry, their mind is oftentimes on what the next meal is going to be. In an indirect way, we affect the students in the kitchen. They can accomplish what they have to in the classroom. And for them to accomplish that, oftentimes that's going to better their situation for themselves, their family, and their community. So in a sense, helping the student in an indirect manner with the food is something that I really enjoy.
Columbus, Ohio has so much to offer our youth. The growth you can obtain from being a part of this district is huge. There is such diversity and learning experience happening throughout our K-12 buildings.
I love to see the excitement in the kids' faces when they know they can start school the very next day. So it's exciting for the families. So I think it's very impactful because it gives them that first start to, learning and growing.
I've been working with kids all my life. Coming here, meeting the students, the relationships that I've built over the years is just phenomenal. I'm seeing students, still see students to this day that thank me. Just, Thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for helping provide a safe learning environment. You know, thank you for the talks, you know, and they're really appreciative.
The district provides training throughout the school year and a lot of information that's constantly updated, and it's always available to us. So that's very helpful in being able to, you know, provide the best service to, you know, our students and parents. The diversity in Columbus and inclusion, it's unlike any other place, really. There's so many different cultures and you come in contact with just on a daily basis, you know, with our students and parents and teachers.
I've really enjoyed the last few years working here at CCS. It's got great benefits, the people have been great, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I've had other job offers, but I've turned them down because I just really like the people and I like working here.
Run to your computer and apply online. This is one of the greatest kept secrets in the school district, really. This is a great job. Just apply online, it's easy. We have, our training is excellent, and you know, we'll do everything we can to help you get through, and you won't regret it, I promise.
Hi, I'm Kerry Charles, and the big story this day, Columbus City Schools is welcoming leaders of all ages back into the classroom for the 2025-2026 school year.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Thursday special board meeting, which is our joint committee meeting. Today is Thursday, November 13th. Mr. Treasurer, can we call the roll?
Yeah, Vice President Adair.
Present.
Ms. Ingles.
Here.
Dr. Pierce online. Ms. Raz. She is here. I saw her earlier. Mr. Simmons.
Present.
We have a quorum.
I'm here as well, thank you.
Forgive me, Madam P.E. All right, can we rise for the pledge, everyone? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Funny, my dad was in the military, and the way he did the Pledge of Allegiance was like fast. It was a fast cadence, so this is weird. But, welcome, everyone. Glad to see you all this evening. Just a few announcements. We have an upcoming event this coming Saturday at the Public Library where we are continuing our listening tour. So those who are interested in attending, Madam President Emeritus, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you, President Cole. As my colleague mentioned, this coming Saturday, members of the board will be at the main library right around the corner here on Grant Avenue, starting at 10:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. In the auditorium. So we welcome you to come, give us your feedback. There will not be a formal presentation as the ones we've had as part of the listening fairs the past couple of weeks. This will be just an opportunity for us to come, listen, hear from you, gather feedback, gather your questions if you have them. If you haven't had an opportunity to fill out the survey, we will have that survey with us as well. And then we will also, do you want me to mention the other two?
Yes, please.
And then also on next board meeting, which is November the 18th, from 5 to 6, we're opening office hours a little bit early at 3700 South High Street, which is another opportunity for you to come and meet with any one of us to discuss any of the information you'll hear tonight or any of the information that has already been shared up to this point. And then lastly, November the 19th, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. him via Zoom. There is a registration link for that on our website, so feel free to register if you want to be able to connect with us virtually. In addition to, obviously, you can always email us as well. All of our email addresses are public. They're on our website, but definitely we hope that you will be able to connect with us at one of these 3 upcoming listening touch points. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Board Member Vera. With that, we will, before we adopt the agenda, this evening is going to be just a presentation, a fairly in-depth one, where we're going to get a deeper understanding, a deeper look at where we are from a staff standpoint and what cost cuts, what reductions we need to be able to consider as the Board of Education moving forward. The end work of this will ideally be the space of the Joint Committee to say that you want to vote to move this forward to the board. And I think that I really want you all to be as engaged as possible. I want you to ask as many questions as you need to ask. This is something that is a heavy lift, but again, we're in the problem-solving mode, right? We're in a problem-solving mindset where we're not going to allow ourselves to be overwhelmed. There's nothing wrong to have the feelings, but let's stay away from allowing ourselves to be overwhelmed as much as we are compelled by how we can figure this out and solve problems. If there are any ideas and concepts that you want to uplift in this conversation, they are welcome. Let me say that again. They are welcome, okay? So we'll have a presentation. First, we'll have a public speaker. I believe we have one speaker that will be joining us this evening. That individual will go first. Post that, we will walk right into the presentation and close out with a very robust discussion around concerns, but more importantly, ideas. And, you know, a level setting, so to speak, even about where each of us are with regards to this, and close out with hopefully uplifting this to the board in a way for us to take further action and discussion. That will happen regardless, but I like the support of this joint committee to be able to do that, should you all feel compelled and ready to do that. There'll be some more joining us. I know that folks called in advance saying that it will be late. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
It is moved and seconded. Let's call the roll.
Vice President Adair.
Yes.
Ms. Vera.
Yes.
Ms. Ingles.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
President Cole.
Yes. All right, motion passes. Okay, our first guest speaker, you are welcome to join us at the dais. Thank you very kindly. Ms. Jennifer Creighton. Ms. Creighton, are you here? Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. You will have 3 minutes once you begin.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. President and members of the board and community. I felt compelled to come out today to speak to you. I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional because it means so much to me. I am a graduate of Northland High School, class of 2001. I spent 15 years in Texas, where my daughter got to graduate from school. I now have a young one who is coming up in the school district. And when we moved back in 2020, I was remiss to put him back in Columbus City Schools because even in 2001, we faced problems that I didn't feel were addressed. And if it weren't for my son pushing me to say, Mom, I want to try public school, I wouldn't have given that opportunity. He is very much involved. Many of you do know him by name, have heard his concerns, have heard his ideas. But what I have not heard is anybody talk to the parents. I spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment as to how I could help as a parent, as a community member, as somebody heavily invested and proud to have been a graduate of this district. And I found that for lack of transparency, that transparency took me 2 weeks to dig what I was finding, because I tried to also approach it not just as a parent facing transportation cuts or losing teachers or losing family ambassadors or anything like that. I tried to sit in your shoes because I don't know what that's like. But what I found is there have been decisions that were made without the community input, so to speak, and we have a trust issue. And I hope that going forward, it doesn't take me 2 weeks to find that data that I've been looking for the 2 weeks that's shown these schools would work coming together to be merged. My son came up with that idea before I had found it on the school district website, that things like he attends the preparatory school for boys, combining the girls in school, or the girls and boys school at the middle school level with two distinct admin there, because that building can house both the boys and the girls. Took me 2 weeks to find that my 12-year-old came up with on his own. Why is it taking us so long as parents? I have the freedom of, because I'm on disability, I don't have a full-time job. My job is at home. You have to understand that parents don't trust you. They do not, because we have to find it. I found it on the district website. It's there. It took me 2 weeks to find the budget shortfalls, to find these recommendations from this committee that was hired in to give the recommendations to the board before we were facing a $50 million budget fall, a $100 million budget fall. We had no information, none. We're told one thing, and then another thing happens. So it feels like to us as parents that the decisions are already made. You're holding these town halls, and you're holding these meetings, but you're not listening. You're not listening. You didn't listen to the advisory council about consolidations. We're closing schools that were receiving remodeling. Nobody understands that the 2023 levy that was passed was for building maintenance and repairs. They think it's going into the general fund. They have no idea, because that information is not being presented in a way that can be understood and easily found. I want to support you. I want to support the parents. I want to find the pain as soft as it can be. Nobody wants to lose a beloved school. Nobody wants to lose a bus driver. The bus driver, my son gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get on the bus at 5:30 to go across town because he enjoys it. He loves it. It benefits him. And those bus drivers are there every morning, every afternoon, keeping me apprised. I don't have to go check the website every week. I don't have to check it every day. They're telling me. They're calling me when they're going to be late. They care. Transportation recognizes it is a low-hanging fruit. It is easy, especially because we have the penalties that we are being charged by the state of Ohio for not being able to properly bus charter and non-CCS students to their schools. Why are we not mobilizing our parents better to go to that legislature, to change those rules, to change if we want to sell a building, we have to offer it to a higher performing charter school first, and then wait another 60 days and provide it the opportunity for another charter school to buy it, to then be able to offer it up for auction. We need to mobilize and work together, not just as the board, not just as admin, but as parents. And I mean truly work together, because we can do that. But understand, we as parents were angry because that transparency is not there.
I thank you so very much for your feedback and you coming here and sharing this with us. It is duly noted and taken under deep and very serious consideration.
Thank you.
You have my word on that. So thank you very much. In closing, there have been no decisions made at this point in time. What we have before us and what will come before us this evening are a series of recommendations that we will further deliberate on at our next board meeting, and then come December 2nd, be prepared to make a final decision. All right. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. We will go right into Section 4, which is our discussion on district staffing. Madam Superintendent, good evening.
Good evening, President Cole. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, members of the board. We are here tonight to provide an update and have a discussion regarding budget reductions. So we're going to talk through I'm waiting for our team. Okay, we have the presentation here. We're going to talk through some of the previous recommendations that we've made as we've talked through the joint committee meetings in September, October, and November, and tonight is the final presentation on budget reductions. Over 3 nights, October 27th at South High School, October 28th at West High School, and October 29th at Mifflin High School, Columbus City Schools hosted our Future Our CCS Town Hall Workshop Series. We welcomed more than 650 in-person attendees, and more than 1,000 online surveys have already been completed. The survey remains open on the district's website for the next few weeks, so even more voices can be heard. The feedback from our families, staff, and community partners has been both insightful and inspiring. In our Priority Boxes activity, 46% of the participants identified academics and whole child supports as a top district priority. 28% prioritized school buildings, and 26% emphasizing busing and transportation. Through our online engagement, we learned that 79% of respondents want the district to focus on supporting teachers in the classroom and expanding access to art, music, and PE, which was one of the most strongly supported areas for investment. And when asked about school consolidation, 51% of participants said it's important to protect specialized academic programs and job readiness pathways. Our vision for students. We are here to ensure that every student learns in a strong and modern school environment with the programs and support they need to succeed. We want more college and career prep opportunities for our students, where 100% of our high schools will offer advanced courses. 100% of our high schools will offer career pathways. 100% of those pathways that lead to actual credentials or credit attainment for our students. Our vision also calls for more arts, clubs, and advanced courses at elementary and middle schools, where 100% of our middle schools should offer electives and introductory career tech classes that help students get ready for college and career. And all elementary schools should have a unified arts teacher dedicated to the building. We know that we need to make some tough decisions so we can get to this better future, to reset our budgets, to realign our facilities and programs, and to reboot transportation. You see the challenges that are listed on the left side of the screen. Too many aging facilities are eating up too much of our resources. Too many students traveling too far to get to the program they want, and too many small aging buildings simply don't offer the programs that allow our students to compete in K-12 and beyond. And that is possible. It's possible for us to create this vision and create these opportunities if we make these tough decisions today. The plans that we are talking about tonight, the plans that we have discussed in September and October, will allow us to move forward and compete with our peer districts. We've invested together. We've invested in buildings, we've invested in safety, we've put extra effort into our board goals on math, literacy, and graduation. We've added key whole child supports in all of our schools. We've expanded career and technical education programming for our middle school and high school students, and in pre-K programming for our youngest scholars. Our students are earning college credits before graduation, gaining industry credentials through career and technical education, and rediscovering the joy in learning. And with the Columbus Promise, which we launched just a few years ago, the City of Columbus, I Know I Can, and Columbus State means our graduates not only can go to college for free, but now through the Buckeye Bridge, they can pursue a free bachelor's degree at The Ohio State University. Celebrating our successes, thanks to all of our educators, our teachers, our staff members, our IAs, our bus drivers, our food service staff, our parents, and our community. We are gaining progress, We are making and seeing real wins in the classroom and in our schools. It's important to celebrate our successes, especially since COVID. 40 of our schools are 3-star or higher on the state report card, and our college and career paths are among the best ranked in any Central Ohio district. I'm so proud of our students. I'm so proud of the successes that we've had. And our CTE, our high school students taking these classes have earned and demonstrated a 95% graduation rate, which is incredible. Since the pandemic disrupted learning across America, Columbus City School students are improving faster than the state average in every major testing area. Chronic absenteeism has dropped by 22 points since 2021, thanks to our shared commitment to showing up and staying connected. That's good. That's great progress, but we know we cannot stop there. We need our entire community to join us in this effort to combat chronic absenteeism. Our entire CCS community continues to show up for our students and helped make all of these wins possible. By supporting past levies, by continuing to invest in public education, and by supporting and choosing CCS. Promises were made and kept by our district to our Columbus community, our CCS students, and their families. Over the past 5 years, we've made meaningful progress to help students recover from pandemic-related learning loss and address school staffing, even as funding has lagged. Preserving the momentum remains a top priority for us, but doing so requires us to take thoughtful, proactive steps to align our revenue and our expenses. Let's be clear. The State Department of Education does work with us, and we appreciate it. But over the past decade, public schools across Ohio are not being fairly or fully funded. It is unconstitutional. The courts have ruled that several times, and it's simply wrong. Now they're looking to undercut property taxes with new proposals that could further impact every public school in Ohio. The state used to be a big player in education. In 2022, they provided more than 30% of our budget in CCS. Today, that is closer to 15%, and it will be 10% in 2027. And just to highlight on this graph, the dark blue represents our total general fund revenue, and the blue bars represent state aid. So you can see visually how state aid has significantly decreased over the years. You've heard that the district is in deficit spending. That means we're using the savings account to pay today's bills. The total deficit is close to $100 million. Working with our treasurer and the Board of Education, we've committed to making $50 million in permanent cuts for the upcoming 26-27 school year. Even with that, we run out of savings in 2030, which could force us to go for an operating levy or go into state emergency if we do not act now. I was directed by the Board of Education to identify $50 million in cuts from our personnel and non-personnel budget. In previous presentations, we have shared if we make changes in other key areas such as transportation, facilities, and our lottery, that would yield a cost savings. Tonight's conversation is about what those cuts potentially could look like with staffing and non-personnel. Together with the treasurer, my team has already taken steps to address what we were seeing in terms of deficit spending and took steps to tighten our belts over the last several months. These measures have already begun to show a savings. We've reduced non-personnel budgets where possible and have not backfilled many administrative positions that have become vacant. Since September, this joint committee has received several presentations with recommendations for system changes to address our budget challenges. First, you heard from our transportation team about our current transportation model and heard recommendations for changes, which we will review this evening. In October, you learned more about our current school choice lottery process and were updated on pending legislation impacting our school realignment decisions, which we will also discuss again tonight. Tonight, I will present recommendations for cuts to staffing and programs. As you heard in previous presentations, CCS runs more routes than CODA. In order to focus on our core business of teaching and learning, we need to make some adjustments in our transportation model. Option 1 that was presented to the Joint Committee shows that in the first option, we would provide CODA passes for high school students, but not yellow bus service. Our students with IEPs who have transportation in their IEP will continue to receive school bus service as required by law. In option 2, the second option presented is to offer no high school transportation for high school students. And that would impact over 8,000 students across the district. Option 3 that was presented to the Joint Committee was around choice school lottery program and our choice program and the transportation associated with that. By approving this recommendation, the district could realize savings. This would be achieved by discontinuing transportation for students who lottery into non-100% lottery schools. This change would affect approximately 2,019 CCS elementary and middle school students currently attending schools that do not meet the 100% lottery designation. About a week ago, Senator Brenner, who chairs the Senate Education Committee, introduced a large education bill, Senate Bill 311. This bill includes language that once again threatens the sale of CCS school buildings. This language is very similar to what we saw discussed during the state operating budget earlier this year. What's most concerning is that this bill changes how a building would be identified as an unused school facility. It also reduces how much a district could sell one of these buildings for. If this language is implemented, it could significantly impact local control over our facilities and limit our flexibility in managing district assets. And this includes many of the buildings that our community has already invested in. Finally, in October, this Joint Committee reviewed the anticipated savings if we close additional small schools and balance enrollment in our newer buildings. There were additional schools that were presented in October, and the board will be voting on these closures in December. These schools are Columbus Gifted Academy moving to Avondale and Como moving to Oakland Park. However, they are not shown here because any savings from closing those additional schools will not be realized until after fiscal year 26. So, voting to approve these recommendations, the recommendations that we've already discussed, school lottery, transportation for high school students, and additional considerations for school realignment and closures, voting to approve those recommendations will result in a savings of over $11 million on the general fund. So that's a recap of what we've already discussed in previous joint committee meetings, and all of those recommendations were already approved of by this committee and moved to the Board of Education for further consideration. As we shared during our town hall meetings, our budget decisions will be made based on data, our student-first principles and community priorities. Residents will help guide where we invest for the future. We will do everything that we can to protect classroom instruction wherever possible. This is how our current general fund is allocated. As you can see, personnel makes up the largest percentage of this budget. So when we think about our personnel budget, first we're going to talk about non-personnel. These are the line items that speak to contracts and services that are not related directly to staffing. And so on this slide, these are some of the areas that we are considering making significant reductions in to again help address the budget gap that we have been discussing. Reducing family ambassadors. The Family Ambassador Program will continue. The Family Ambassador Program will continue, but the services to schools will be reduced. Not every school will have their own family ambassador. Some family ambassadors will serve multiple schools with this recommendation. Reducing bilingual engagement liaisons. Fewer translation supports may make it harder for our English learner families to access services and navigate district resources. This will require staff to rely more heavily on new technology tools to translate and address language barriers. Minimize conferences and travel to legal compliance and recruitment. Staff will have fewer opportunities to attend national conferences and will be expected to participate in virtual or local options to learn about new methods and trends relevant to their role. We will continue to pursue new grant opportunities and alternative funding to support our professional development needs across the district. Reduce Career Academy investment. While the investment in our Career Academy strategy will be reduced in the general fund, we will continue to expand this strategy as planned, and we are exploring additional grant opportunities and external partnerships to support the expansion of career academies. Freeze library refresh budget. Currently, each school has an annual library book refresh budget of approximately $1,000 a year, provided by the library services budget. We would pause these resources, which will result in books not being replaced immediately when they are lost or damaged. So typically, we would rely on when a book is lost or damaged, we would assess a fine to the student and the family to replace that lost or damaged book. Reduce the OSU Schoenbaum pre-K contract. CCS currently pays for 19 seats in this partnership for students who live within the CCS district. When this partnership began many years ago, the district had limited pre-K programs in our schools. Since then, we have invested in pre-K with the support of our community and now have available seats within our CCS pre-K classrooms. The cost to provide pre-K at the Schoenbaum Center is now higher than our own CCS pre-K programs. We would work to reduce the NCH contract for medical consultants. Through our partners at Nationwide Children's Hospital, we contract for medical consultant services. We will work with Nationwide Children's Hospital to seek alternative funding to continue these services. Our medical consultant provides the district with an expert in pediatric health and is critical to ensuring that our district health services have support in implementing evidence-based proactive health strategies. This includes guidance on immunization requirements, communicable disease control, emergency response planning, and adherence to local, state, and federal regulations. In addition, we will reduce our capital planning budget. We had earmarked significant funding to this category to work on our integrated facility master plan project, which will have to be delayed until we can identify additional funding sources for that project. We will reduce our IT platforms. We have reviewed the existing IT platforms and identified some redundancies and opportunities for consolidation. We have some applications that will no longer be necessary in our IT environment, and we will not renew them. This will be both a budget savings and require less user training and IT staff support. We'll reduce the buildings and grounds budget. The buildings and grounds budget will be reduced by utilizing PI levy funds to purchase our modular buildings that are currently rented for an annual fee. We'll continue to plow snow when necessary, but we will certainly be leaner on the salt that will be added to minimize ice and freezing of sidewalks and parking lots. Painting will stop performing non-emergency painting services and reducing services in areas that we can cut back on, like mulching and carpet replacements. Reduce our Chromebook replacement. Our Chromebook distribution model has changed since the pandemic. Students in grades K through 8 now use their Chromebook in school rather than taking them back and forth from school to home each day. We have seen a reduction in the need to replace Chromebooks and screens due to that shift in our practice. Reduce the HR recruiting budget. Given the reductions in staffing that we are making and recommending, there will be fewer resources devoted to recruitment. Remaining recruitment funds will focus on hard-to-fill positions such as special ed teachers, math teachers, bus drivers. Our high needs licensure program will continue at a reduced level. Fewer aspiring teachers will have the opportunity to receive financial support to earn or add a teaching license in a high need area. Again, when we were looking at our budget, you will see that we've included things from over $1,000 for library books replacement to allocations and resources that are much higher. But in total, we were able to identify over $8 million in non-personnel for budget reductions and savings. The more that we are able to identify in non-personnel means that we're saving jobs in staffing. I recognize that there are significant challenges with reducing our non-personnel budget. Could we use more funding for Chromebooks? Absolutely. Could we use more funding for buildings and grounds? Absolutely. Could we use more funding for IT platforms? Absolutely. But we are here tonight because we have some tough decisions before us, and it means that we have to look at all aspects of our budget, particularly our non-personnel, to make some shifts. And the more that we shift in these areas, it means that we can reduce or minimize the shift to staff and positions in our buildings. As we transition to our staffing and program reduction recommendations, these guiding principles will be the basis of our decisions. Preserving our academic vision by putting students first, protecting classroom teaching and learning supports, and starting with a leaner central office, reducing or eliminating contracts, consultants, and purchase services. CCS personnel groups. We'll now focus on reductions in staffing recommendations. Administrator positions. Across the district, we have 451 total positions. Admin includes central office staff and school-based administrators. As you recall, we have 113 school buildings. That includes over 213 principals and assistant principals that spend their day-to-day in school buildings working directly with students and families. So half of these positions are school-based positions interacting, supporting, programming, student services in our buildings. Certificated positions include positions such as classroom teachers, teachers on special assignment who may be working in a department, supporting with curriculum, school counselors, school social workers, intervention specialists, tutors, and nurses. Classified positions include, but it's not limited to, bus drivers, food service staff, instructional assistants, secretaries, custodians, and safety and security specialists. This slide represents our staffing levels post-COVID. We know that administration and management, the number of central office staff and administrators that we have in CCS, includes all staff whose day-to-day work sits at central office rather than in schools. Post-COVID, those numbers have increased. And so this slide shows CCS is in the yellow. The green represents the median percentage of admin staff for similar sized districts. So this is an opportunity, again, for us to make big decisions, tough decisions during this time as we are continuing to address our budget challenges. This next slide shows similarly that when we think about the number of staff that we have in our buildings, again, CCS is at 62% compared to 40% for the median-sized district. Why is that? We think about the number of schools that we have based on our enrollment. We are allocating more staff to serve our students compared to our peer districts of similar size due to the number of buildings that we are operating across the district. So can we make changes in central office? Absolutely. Are we going to make changes in our staffing at the school level? Absolutely. First, I will make the first set of reductions in my central office and our administrative team. Our administrative team includes, again, central office staff. It also includes principals in schools and assistant principals. 93% of proposed administrative cuts will come from central office. We will reduce 50 central office administrators as a part of these recommendations. Personnel. We will restructure central office services to work in a leaner way. We will think differently about how we prioritize and do the work of supporting schools going forward with fewer people and fewer resources. We will look at how we can reduce operating costs without harming student services and supports to schools. Wherever possible, we will also work to achieve reductions through attrition, retirements, and not backfilling vacancies. So we think about central office administrator positions, that's a 21% reduction, including 50 total positions to be reduced. School-based administrator positions, there are 4 positions to be reduced. Those are associated with the buildings that the board has already voted to close or realign. Certificated positions, we're recommending a 6% reduction. That would be 275 total positions to be reduced. And classified positions is a 3% reduction with 116 total positions to be reduced. Additional personnel reductions, we would limit extended time and stipends to our contractual obligations, and we would reduce our budget for hourly staff. This will yield an additional $2 million in savings. Contractual obligations includes the stipends we pay to intervention specialists who serve large caseloads of students with IEPs, counselors who work during the summer, PAR consulting teachers, teachers who serve on the reform panel, etc. These stipends are contractual and will continue to be paid. The reduction would impact extended time, such as additional pay for teachers who write curriculum or participate in PD outside of contractual time. Hourly staff serve in a variety of part-time positions, such as tutors and substitutes. We would still provide these services, but at a significantly reduced rate. While we work to minimize the impact of these reductions on students, each of these cuts carries risk. We have looked at the impact of program and staffing reductions. Remaining staff will have increased workloads as our student needs have not changed. We will prioritize support for our core instructional programs and students with special needs. So this slide represents the summary of all of the categories where we have identified potential reductions and recommendations for consideration. Future considerations. We know that tonight we're talking about $50 million in reductions in staffing and non-personnel, but we know that our budget gap is over $100 million. If we're continuing to have conversations and think about how we address this budget gap, these are areas of recommendation for us to look for future considerations. Increasing our ticket fees to athletic events, sporting events, and extracurricular activities for the community. Implement a sliding scale for pre-K or cut pre-K completely, given that we do not receive full funding from the state of Ohio to operate or serve our youngest learners. Increase facility rental fees to cover overtime and costs. Sell WCBE radio station. Right-sizing administrative teams for all board direct reports. Additional school building consolidations and closures. Closure and sale of admin buildings across the district. And furlough days for administrators on a 260-day contract. Again, while we are working to close a $50 million budget gap this year, we know that our current deficit spending will require us to make additional reductions in the coming years. We will look to collaborate with community partners to seek alternative revenue sources and grants. So I'm going to go back now and review all of the recommendations that have been presented to the Joint Committee, some of which have already moved to the board for further consideration. In September, the transportation model. October, school realignment, school choice and lottery. November, staffing and program reductions. I am reviewing these recommendations because I want to be clear. The recommendations that we just discussed for staffing and non-personnel that total $50 million, if we make changes in these other areas, transportation, school realignment, and lottery, that would significantly impact the reductions that we're discussing tonight. In essence, that would mean we would save jobs. That would mean that there would be more people that are with more staff members available to support our students in the classroom. So I just want to recap that when we talk about the $50 million in reductions that we presented tonight, I don't want us to look at those in isolation. Again, option one, COTA passes for high school students. Fewer contract buses needed, reduces our liability for state noncompliance fines, and similar to Cincinnati's model. Option two, no transportation offered to high school students, no transportation for CCS students, private or charter non-public high schoolers, no district-issued COTA passes, and it eliminates altogether non-compliance fines for grades 9 through 12. Option three, busing for our lottery schools. Continue the lottery system. Families will still have school choice in CCS, but students, we would discontinue K-8 transportation for students who lottery into a non-100% lottery school. Option four, which we've discussed, consolidation. If we move forward with these recommendations on the PI budget, there will be an annual savings of over $2.6 million, maintenance and utility savings of $700,000. Again, small cuts will not close this budget gaps. We have to make big decisions, tough decisions, thinking about our services that we provide our students, our operations areas. We talked about transportation, we talked about lottery, and certainly tonight we're talking about staffing. The more cuts we make in those other areas will allow us to continue to protect our levy promises, the investments that we've already made to make sure that we have the supports in place to support our students in all of our schools. Just another revisit of the timeline. In September, we talked about recommendations for transportation. In October was lottery and school realignment recommendations. November, staffing and programming recommendations. Next month, in December, the Board of Education will be taking a vote on these reductions. In closing, our community survey is still open. We've had a series of town hall meetings where we talked about the first set of recommendations, and now we have new recommendations on the table. As Board Member Vera announced at the start of this meeting, our board is continuing to engage with the community to receive feedback. It is not too late for you to share your feedback with us and join us at the upcoming listening sessions that our Board of Education will be holding on November 15th, November 18th, and November 19th. And at this time, I'm going to close with my presentation, and certainly I am available, my staff is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. With that in mind, particularly as it relates to equipping the community to be a bit more informed about where we are in current situation right now, not only just from a financial standpoint, but also from the operational recommendations and staff recommendations you have made. I think it's important to make sure that we have this posted somewhere where they can visibly see it and provide their insights to it. I actually thought we were going to have it on the agenda tonight. Yeah, I thought it was going to be on Board Docs. But if we can make sure that this is posted on Board Docs, I think that'll be tremendous. The last thing we want to do is, again, make the tough decisions that we have to make. And as much as we have very, very effectively engaged folks, I think we can always be better at it, A. And B, there's always somebody or some folks who may have slipped through the gaps, no matter how aggressively we went about trying to ensure everybody knows what we have to face at this point in time. So let's make sure we post that, please. If there are any changes for some reason, let's be sure that we post those immediately as well. If we can do that, by COB tomorrow, that'd be awesome. With that, I'm going to open the floor for conversations now. That's my superintendent. She got it done now. All right. Before I open the floor up, what you got tonight was the larger scale view of what it is that we have to take under consideration from a total appropriation reduction of appropriation on the non-personnel side and on the personnel side. So how much has been recommended for reduction on the personnel side you see, and you've also seen what's recommended on the non-personnel side. With that in mind, you weren't given the finer details of things. You weren't given this on a job for job, basis. This information was not provided, and was not provided because we actually don't have the ability at this point in time, for very technical, legal, contractual reasons. We do not have the ability to provide that information right now. So I want you to take that under serious, consideration, that when you're talking about things like reduction in force, for example, those follow a very contractual procedure. And that is done on a job for job, line for line, person for person basis. That's where those considerations are made. In addition to that, I want to say and thank our staff and our direct reports. I want to thank you all for also opening your arms and the table to our collective bargaining partners in CEA and CSEA to the table to provide their insights as partners in this process. This is incredibly uncomfortable, but we have to approach this as an all-hands-on-deck process together. This is a together situation. And final, I want to say this, that however things land with regards to where we settle with a final vote as a board, this all-hands-on-deck effort is not solely based on Columbus City Schools. Let me clarify that for those who are like, where is he going with this? What I'm saying to each of you in the community watching or listening is that our children are our responsibility. Our children are our responsibility within our respective spaces. So if your space happens to be mom and dad, well, as mom and dad, we are all responsible for our children. That means that if we're seeing lesser resources at bear in a school building because we're losing staff to help keep it clean, because we're losing staff to help do things, well, it means that we need in the building to put our hands on deck to make sure our buildings are clean, to make sure our grounds are clean. If we're missing opportunity for transportation for some reason and are not able to fill that gap, missing school is not an option. Let me say that again, and I'm speaking as a dad, a parent. Not going to school, not attending school is not an option. It is not. For legal purposes, and most importantly, for the highest aspirational purposes of your education and your future, I want to ensure that this is something this board and this administration has taken under very serious consideration. But if that gap is not able to be filled, it does not mean that not going to school is an option, because it is not. Your space and place is with us in the school building during school hour days. That is your job, young people. If you're listening, parents, if you're listening, that's their job. And their currency is their grades. Their currency is what they get because of what they earned in a school building. So I want to say some of these things to really level set so that as you all are providing us feedback, you're never losing sight of the mutuality, right? The duality of responsibility on behalf of the institution, Columbus City Schools, and also on behalf of those wonderful people who did the wonderful job and are doing the wonderful job of raising our children in their homes and in our communities. If there's one thing I know about Columbus, is that when it's time to step up, this community does it. When it's time to step up, this community has made it happen. We fed over 3,700 families just on last Friday alone. When it's time for this community to step up, we're ready. All right. With that, I'm going to open the floor for any questions that folks have or any comments. And who's ready? Madam Vice President.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for all the staff that worked on it. I think maybe one important piece that might kind of highlight the process that the staff went through is actually to talk about the process. So you gave us, especially, and by the way, the presentation is now in board docs, so everyone can look at it. Especially on slides 22 and 23, you went through those and it's kind of presented as a list. And people might wonder, well, how did those things get on the list? What was that kind of internal process that the administration went through? Because it feels kind of here and there, right? Like, how is this really connected to the way that you went about doing this analysis on what to present here to the committee and to the public? Because I know it was a very long process. It took many, many months since we've been talking about this. And I think that might help kind of have people understand how these items, these programs, these kind of thought big picture about the positions and how you got to some of the percentages. Maybe just talk a little bit about that before we start to dig deeper in.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Adair, for raising that. First, I would like to, on slide number 24, was the slide where we talked about our guiding principles. We talked about we had several conversations across multiple teams about thinking about how we can continue to protect the programming in the classroom and the student experience. So as a result of that, we started with our non-personnel budget. And all of our teams have had some really, really hard conversations internally to really think differently about all of the recommendations that we're moving forward in the non-personnel, recognizing, again, the more shifts and the more changes we make in non-personnel allows us more resources to retain and keep for personnel, staffing positions. And so when we thought about programming, we thought we looked at our past expenditures, how we've allocated these resources in the past, and certainly determined priority areas for the next budget. And so when we think about all of these investments, some of these are investments that are significant. They provide significant services and supports to our students and to our schools. And so in some of the cases, we were not eliminating them entirely. We're thinking about how to scale them back and, again, an opportunity to maximize those resources. So this was, again, an exercise that our entire staff went through, again, to think about how we can maximize the resources on our non-personnel budget. Again, the more reductions we make in non-personnel means that we'll be able to make fewer reductions in staffing. And so having internal conversations, dialogue, thinking about the impact of these expenditures, the investments, the past practice, the past expenditures, as well as the priorities for the upcoming school year.
All right. Are there any additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Ms. Superintendent, I really appreciate the recommendation list. I think it's very thorough, and that should be posted as well. I just feel it should be posted because it does explain all the cuts and what you plan to work on or what the district plans to work through. Also, I would just like to know from the board, are we going to go through each one of these or just go through the whole list together tonight as a plan? What's the plan for this plan?
I thank you. The idea here, as earlier stated, and I'll try to even be a little more clear, I apologize. What we're doing at this point in time is looking at those two big buckets in terms of total number of folks and total budget reduction that we're looking at, and saying that we want to lift this up to the board for deeper consideration, and particularly in those kind of, more nuanced kind of ways. Understand, though, that nuanced perspective that is tied to reductions in force, things like that, is actually a longer process than beyond now. But for the sake of ensuring that we are giving the superintendent and administration every bit of what they need, and that includes our treasurer, every bit of what they need to know exactly what the reduction amount is, we want to be able to give them that latitude as best we can. Does that, am I good?
Clear.
Yes, well, hold on, let me go to Gorman. Oh, okay, yes, sir, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions. All right, so one thing I was curious about, I brought this up previously, I get this is a sensitive topic, but I do just want to point out, like healthcare, for example. I know my company is moving a lot of people over to high deductible plans, funding their HSAs, and I just want to point out, like, it seems like there's some opportunities like that we should be exploring to make sure that we don't have to make cuts in services, staff, or anything else like that while still providing the same level of services internally. The other thing I'm curious about is with electricity, if there aren't opportunities to work with other school districts to be a bigger cooperative to then drive down the price of electricity because we have more bargaining power. I'd say the same thing in healthcare. I just know that can be a complex beast. So I'm curious if there's any alternatives like that we've explored or are open to.
Want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Our committee.
Great question. Can you hear me okay? I'll speak to the electricity. We do participate in cooperative purchasing with other school districts on the electricity front. So we're taking advantage of that. We'll continue to flip over every stone we can on utility savings as we go forward. I think with respect to health insurance, obviously, we pay close attention to market trends, but those are negotiated agreements with respect to our labor partners. So those take a longer-term view of changes. We have a joint insurance committee that works through that process. But yes, to your point, the insurance market is ever evolving, ever changing, in a large portion of our budget.
And then, I had one more question. I was just looking through this list, and I definitely applaud your team for going through and thinking about it and having those hard conversations. But I think one thing I'm curious about is, what metrics are we going to put in place to make sure that these things actually have a positive return? Because a couple of the items that I was looking at, I get a little bit worried about. So like the bilingual liaisons, for example, I could see cutting that leading to burnout of staff trying to overextend themselves, trying to help families, right? The medical contractors, I get concerned that if that causes outbreaks or more health concerns in the schools, right, then we're spending negative money trying to take care of kids. And then I think the facilities planning, that one in particular just concerns me because it seems we keep kicking that can down the road, right? And I think if we need to figure out a plan to offer these higher level services of the Columbus Academies and whatnot, making sure that we're planning so that we get to where we want to go and not putting that off. So I'm curious, like, have we thought about metrics we're going to have to make sure that any of these items that we actually take on are getting us the positive return that we're looking at holistically?
So thank you for lifting that up and raising that. I want to name that all of this gives me heartburn, all of it. We are in a place where we have to make significant cuts to our budget. And many of these resources and investments, whether it's non-personnel or personnel, these are the same resources that we fought so hard for in our past levy. We knew post-pandemic that we needed more supports in our schools. We knew that's how we even got to having a medical consultant, because post-pandemic, everything became medical. We needed a medical consultant as a part of our team. And so I just want to name that there isn't anything on this list that's worth fighting for, but not fighting for. We are fighting for all of these resources, but we are here tonight because there's a significant budget gap. The state isn't going to allocate us more funding. We don't see more funding coming from the feds. And now we have a risk of even the funding that we receive from property taxes. So we have to make tough decisions. And so when I look at all of these investments that we fought for, investments that our school-based staff said, we need more counselors. Why? Because when our students come to school, they don't get to decide when they're having a mental health crisis. They need support on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in every school. So I want you to know that I'm going to continue to be the loudest advocate, the loudest champion for advocating for these resources. And if not this, then what? Anything we take off the list, we have to put something back on the list. And my commitment to you is we're going to continue to look closely at every expenditure across the district. There are additional contracts that we're looking at reducing or eliminating, but we couldn't add in this budget tonight because we have to make sure we work through the legal language to reduce or eliminate those contracts. But it's up for discussion and it's on the table. So I want you to know that these conversations are ongoing. These are recommendations. We do have to make some decisions, but I'm also hopeful that if we make some decisions in those other areas that we've talked about in September and October, that we will be able to reduce the number of positions that were included in these recommendations. We will be able to save jobs across the district. We will be able to protect the levy investments that we have made to our students, to our families, and to our community. That's the first thing I'm going to go back to and say, absolutely, we need to restore the cuts to safety and security. We need to restore the cuts to custodians. We need to restore the cuts to our bilingual liaisons. We need to restore the cuts to our teachers in our classrooms. We need to restore the cuts to social workers and counselors. And so I am hopeful that we will be able to have those kind of conversations. And these are this is one point in time where we are discussing and putting everything on the table. So I'm hopeful. Thank you.
Did she answer your question? I want to make sure you get your question answered.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm not sure, because I definitely agree, and I'm glad we're on the same page about that. But yeah, I think I was looking to see, like, when we're reviewing budgets, like, just take, for example, like, if we have to cut the medical contractor, right? And then we see a large increase in sickness in the school that's either reducing the ability for the kids to attend or the other issues that we saw, right? Like, I just want to make sure that we're measuring that to make sure that if we thought we were getting a cost saving and then we realize we're not, we're willing to go back and put that thing back in because we realize it's net negative. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And like in that example, I want you to know that we are thinking through these scenarios with our partners. So in that example, just for that specific example, we have a very strong partnership with Nationwide Children's Health and Nationwide Children's Hospital. And so it was our medical consultant that recommended that recommendation and said, I know, I have full confidence in our commitment and our partnership that we can find another source of revenue. Again, our partners are saying, we want to help you close this gap. We know there's a need. The needs have not changed. Do we need the advice and consultation of a medical consultant? Absolutely. But our partner said, let me help you solve this problem, just a small piece of it, right? It's not $50 million, let's be clear. Just a very small piece of it. And so we're absolutely, once we have a finalized list of reductions, we will absolutely go back and say, this is what we need to accomplish, and this is how we're going to measure and monitor that. But that has not been finalized. Again, no decisions have been made as of yet. These are merely recommendations that the board will vote on next month. And if we make reductions in the other areas, it will significantly improve and protect some of the reductions that we have discussed tonight in personnel.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Is it safe to also state, and then I'll go to Board Member Board Member Vera, then Board Member Ingalls, and then whoever else has their hand up. Is it safe to inject into this conversation, particularly related to your concern, that the realignment process from a strategic kind of standpoint also is playing a role in this to help out? Meaning closure and consolidation, that we're trying to ensure by strengthening neighborhood schools, by strengthening our neighborhood school footprint, we're reducing these costs of needed additional staff, but also making sure we condense staff where also needed. So I want you to include that as a part of the thought process as well. If I'm not being clear, help me be clear. Sometimes I can be the nutty professor. Okay, Board Member Vera.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. I guess my question is similar to my colleague here at the end, but in a reversal. So when I see reduced family ambassadors and reduced bilingual engagement liaisons, were we looking at data in terms of the effectiveness of these particular services now, understanding that we have a large population of young people in our district that speak more than one language? We recognize the heartbeat that family ambassadors bring into this district. It was a levy promise that many of us at this table went out alongside of you, and we talked about the importance of these things. And so I want to get an understanding, when we see these two particular recommendations, are we looking at the data in terms of the investments that have been made up until this point? What have we seen with those investments, and what are we prepared to lose by taking these investments away? Because these are critical pieces that I'm actually very surprised they're on this list tonight.
Mm-hmm. So thank you, Board Member Vera, for asking that question. I want to talk a little bit about the ESL services that we provide to our students. And so it's a complement of services, a lot of services that we provide to ensure the success of our students. We know that our students who are learning English as a second language need more supports. These areas of investment are on these recommendations because we were trying to protect the direct services to students. That means teachers, to provide them with the direct instruction so that they can learn the language and meet the goals. That means the ESL assistants that provide small group instruction so that the students can have the supports that they need to meet their academic goals. Prior to COVID and prior to the levy, we didn't have these services. Right. That doesn't mean we didn't need them, but they didn't have them. And so when we're talking about rolling back and reducing our services, we're looking at the additional services that we've added in the last couple of years, because we have to make sure, again, this is the challenge. We have to make sure that we have the direct services available. When we go back to that slide, and we talked about that priority slide, I think it was slide number 24, protecting the resources in the classroom. It is a significant trade-off. And so we have to be thinking differently about how we provide those services and supports, again, to ensure that we meet our goals, and so that we can also meet the moment of this time, which is we have to think differently about how we allocate our resources. Again, this would be one that's top of the list that we advocate and fight for and bring back. It was part of our levy promise, and these are the resources that we should absolutely be advocating for. So if we have an opportunity, instead of making $50 million in staffing, maybe that mark is 30, I'm not sure, because we're making shifts in other areas. Those would be some of the resources that we would bring back first. We would go, the first step would go back, we would go back to those levy promises. All of the positions that were on that those levy promises, that's the first step that we would look at to make sure that we're bringing back those resources if we can find reductions in other areas.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, you know, and I think my colleague Adair here, you know, how is this going to impact the board goals when we think about cutting in these particular areas? I hear what you're saying in terms of classroom instruction, but we recognize that these two specific services are critically connected to student outcomes. And so, you know, I guess I don't expect an answer, but I just want you to know how I'm personally feeling and seeing the connection as to this. We will see an impact on this, not just from a monetary perspective, but this will alter our student experience. And when we say we're protecting, preserving putting students first, this doesn't feel like putting students first, these two particular recommendations, and that's just my personal opinion.
I would argue that this isn't us against us.
No, and
this is us against the conditions that have been created for us in public education.
Right.
If we were receiving fair and equal school funding, we wouldn't be at this table right now. We wouldn't be trying to barter between an ESL translator and an ESL teacher. We wouldn't be trying to barter between whether or not we have IT software, whether or not we have software to survey our families, whether or not we have additional classroom teachers, social workers, custodians, and food service staff. We wouldn't have that conversation.
And I'm not arguing that whatsoever. No, I understand what you're saying, but but part of it also is decisions that haven't been made historically. So granted, there is a financial component to this for the now.
Yes.
But some of this is also because of past decisions that haven't been made. And so when you talk about going to my next question, we talk about realignment, we talk about facilities, but we continue to see only 3 and 4 buildings brought before us. And so I think part of it, and we heard that tonight by a parent, it's like we really have to have the larger piece to this conversation because we're talking about 4 sites for option 4, if I'm correct. I think this was an opportunity to bring that full list back to the board, back to the community. Not saying we're gonna do all, however many those buildings are, because what size are we talking about? We talk about realignment, we talk about the opportunity to leverage our resources, but I still am not clear on what is the number. What is the number that Columbus City Schools needs to be from a high school, middle school, and elementary? Getting bits and pieces as a board member is frustrating, as a parent, as an alumni, it's frustrating, and I feel like that is part of what the frustration, if it really is we have too many school buildings, if that's really a big chunk, it's not the be-all, why are we only talking about 4 schools? So that's something that I think we really need to have more dialogue about and real conversation on what's the strategy, because at the end of the day, if 113, I need you to tell me, I need 10 high schools. I need 15 elementary schools. Let's have that conversation, because kicking it down the can of a couple schools here, a couple schools here, that's not sustainable. And I think when you talk about the vision of this district, the career academies, all the great things that this district already has that we could be able to really amplify, but I don't see a strategy on how we are actually gonna get there, because this is not going away. And the reality is a big part why the number is so big, and I'm not speaking for nobody else up here, I'm speaking for me, is because decisions have not been made that should have been made. Even 50 administrative cuts, that's not enough. We really need to go back and we need to really look at these numbers and make sure that we're really taking out anything that's not essential. And I don't know what the process is, and I'm still not clear on what the process was or how we landed on some of these numbers. But from what I know, I think that number is still too low. And so I think that's something that I want to offer. And then lastly, I just want clarity on the 4 options. Is it that you want the community and the board to consider, because there's 4 options. 1 and 2, either we're cutting high school transportation and they're getting bus passes, or we're cutting high school transportation and they're not getting bus passes. Is it the idea that you want the community and the board to pick 1 of 4? Are we picking multiple things? Like, can you explain exactly what is being brought before us and what they are providing exact feedback on? Because I'm not clear on, is it option 1, 2, 3, and 4? Am I picking 3 or 4? Am I picking 1 or 2? Am I picking 1 of the 4? Can you explain exactly what it is you expect this community to provide feedback on and what you're expecting me to vote on next month?
So first, I'll start with the 4 options. The board asked to present several options for how we could save funding. Before the board are several options for consideration. Technically, the board could choose all of the above. The board could vote to
It's 1 or 2.
That's for transportation.
Okay.
For transportation, there were 2 options that were presented.
Okay.
One option was to eliminate transportation for all high school students, and that would go back to the state minimum. The second option was to, again, eliminate transportation for high school students, but the difference here is CCS would purchase COTA passes for the high school students, which would also require CCS to purchase COTA passes and provide yellow bus service in some instances to our charter non-public school students. Those are the 2 options for transportation. The board could vote for one of those or neither of those solutions. Each one yields a net savings. In addition, before the board were additional buildings to consider for consolidation. Those buildings were brought forth, and the list was narrow because it was based on our current policy, as well schools that we have already reviewed under the previous policy and the facilities task force, in addition to legislation that was before us that would force us to sell any building under 60%. So in tonight's PowerPoint presentation, there was a slide that showed all the buildings in CCS that were underutilized, under 60%. There was legislation in the previous budget bill. There is also recently a legislation that was proposed the last 2 weeks, again, that would force CCS to sell those buildings immediately. Again, many of those recommendations, the bigger recommendations to make additional changes in our footprint, certainly would require us to build new buildings because we are limited in space in some areas of the city where we need more seats. We think about the east side. On the east side, we are at capacity in all of our buildings. What will we need to expand on the east side? We would need a new facility. And so it is our effort, our hope, to have conversations and develop an integrated facility master plan that includes facilities where we would build new, where we would close, consolidate, and realign, and how we would use those assets and determine the future use of those assets. So the one option was about transportation, 2 different options, all about going back to the state minimum. The second option, which is about realignment. The third one is about school choice and school lottery. Currently, as a district, we are providing transportation to students to attend school outside of their neighborhood school for schools that do not have designated programming. And so our recommendation, again, going back to that recommendation, was to continue to offer school choice, but not provide transportation to our schools that were not a 100% lottery school. Tonight, we presented a 4th option for how to save and reduce the budget. And this option was all about staffing and non-personnel. The board could decide we don't want to talk about any of those options that we've discussed the last 3 months. We're not going to touch facilities. We're not going to touch lottery. We're not going to touch transportation. We want all the cuts to come from staffing and non-personnel. And so that's where we would have to focus on this budget. Or the board could say, you know what? We have a budget gap of over $100 million. We're going to move forward with the staffing recommendations for $50 million, lottery, transportation, and realignment. Let's close this gap when we vote in 2 weeks. All of it is on the table. We'll continue to provide additional information as needed and support these conversations moving forward.
I thank you. We have Board Member Ingalls, and then we'll go to yourself. And then Board Member Simmons. I thank you so much for your patience.
Thanks, Board President Cole. So I want to echo what was said. There is no good way, no easy way, no way that will not impact kids to cut $50 million from the budget. And the board has made a decision to cut $50 million to stay financially solvent. That will impact kids, no matter what decision we make. Kids will be affected by those determinations. So I want to acknowledge that and acknowledge that that is painful. I also am excited to see in some of the presentation the discussion about how we can create private-public partnerships and partnerships that create opportunities for our students. I would like to see more of that, and I implore and ask directly that our community, and specifically our business community, step up for our kids. They are our future workforce. They are driving the decision for families to move here to Columbus. Columbus is the economic engine of Ohio, and we need strong public schools if we want a strong economy. And so we are asking for that support, and that is a great example, the reduction of the Nationwide Children's Hospital, the consultation, the opportunity to create some partnership, public-private partnership there. I would like to see that really in all aspects of the things that we're discussing, because there's a lot of opportunity here in this Columbus city, and I am looking forward to that. To do that, though, I think that the buckets that we went through, it would be helpful for the administration. I would ask for a breakdown in the number of cost or in the amount of cost that each of those buckets amount to, because I think if you are somebody who's watching and who is part of a community or has the means to help us out, and you feel very strongly about the Family Ambassador Program, understanding what that costs would be helpful. And so I'm asking for a breakdown of those numbers so that we can have that conversation at a community level. I also, I want to express that I have a little bit of concern here about the integrated facility master plan project will not go forward at this time, and would like a little clarity around that. So we have a general fund, and then we have a PI fund that our voters have given us the opportunity to have. And I would like to understand better about this realignment, about how we envision that going forward. The integrated facility master plan, whether funded or not, I would like to have one and have an idea of where we're going forward. And I think that that has been part of the struggle. It's part of the struggle that Board Member Vera is uplifting, is that it is hard to sell a vision to the community that the community cannot read and not see. And that is very hard when we as board members also struggle to do that because we haven't seen it on paper. And so I would ask that that specific thing, that we do continue putting pen to paper around the vision and what could be for Columbus City Schools kids, because these kids deserve the world. And we need to make sure that we're putting that pen to paper so that our community can see what we're thinking. And then I also want to ask about the reduction in Career Academy investment specifically and what that means, because earlier at the beginning of this school year, we had a presentation about the career academies that were being implemented in different schools. And so what does that actually mean in how those schools would be affected? What are we talking about in that bucket? I was a little unclear.
Thank you, Board Member Ingalls, for those questions. Certainly, we can certainly update that, those documents with the cost. Thank you for lifting up the public-private partnerships, because that is exactly the types of conversations and dialogue that we need to be having in our community to show that we are all hands on deck supporting the investments and the programming that our students need. I'll talk about career academies. So this is one area where we have already been able to gain and garner public-private partnerships. So just last week, we stood with Ohio Health as they announced and certainly awarded us a $150,000 check to support career academies at Beechcroft and East High School to support the health sciences pathway. And we have their commitment that they are ready and willing to invest more and to support this strategy. So that was immediate funding that we were able to say we can remove this funding from the general fund because we just received additional revenue that will not impact our general fund budget, and we're having additional conversations in our community to support this public-private partnership. And this is a strategy that is really, really dependent on our business community, our city, local government to step up and provide those supports. And we're having very productive dialogue and conversations in our community, and our community is really ready and willing to support that strategy. And so we have confidence that we'll be able to identify alternative sources of funding. Again, we have significant interest and desire in continuing that work and expanding it, but for this particular year, we're just reducing the amount of funding for that particular strategy. And when we talk about the integrated facility master plan, so when we think about, it was just over 5 years ago when our district invested over $1 million in a facility master plan. During the pandemic, we had several engagement sessions. And so we have to be mindful, or typically a district wouldn't do a facility master plan every 5 years. And so we have to be mindful of the right timing to introduce that because that would also require significant commitment from our community and the engagement to help us develop that plan. But we know that there is a sense of urgency to complete that work and to have those conversations with our community. My hope is that we bring this back in the spring. We made these tough decisions now. We've made some decisions, and then we start having those conversations in the spring about our integrated facility plan, recognizing that once we stand that plan up, we also have to then talk about how we're going to allocate the resources to fund it. And so having that conversation now, where we're having this conversation, certainly we can do both at the same time, and two things can be true at the same time. But right now, we deliberately chose to focus our community conversations and dialogue around the conversations that we're having right now. So we've spent the last couple of months talking about realignment, talking about ways to reduce our budget, ways to make shifts in programming, ways to make shifts in now staffing. And so once we are able to move through these conversations, we're hopeful that in the spring, we will be able to revisit the conversation and lift that up as a priority for how we spend our time, how we allocate our resources, and create the space to have conversations with our community about the future of our footprint and our schools and our district.
Thank you for that. Does that conclude your questions?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Before we make that transition to you and then to Board Member Simmons, the part of the community conversation aspect that you speak of as it relates to facilities master plan, let's be honest and transparent at the table, that would require what is called a bond. That requires a bond. A bond initiative deals specifically with bricks and mortar. So any of you who wonder what a levy is, the difference between a levy, and from this most traditional sense, and the difference between a bond is that bond focuses on bricks and mortar, and levies focus on general fund, particularly staff, operating, that type of situation. Permanent improvement levy, which we passed most recently with issue 11, that is money that can be set aside for capital pieces, right? But its largely focus, its large focus is really about replacement, recycle, repair, right? What needs to be replaced or recycled, what needs to be repaired. Because we knew we had significant gaps to close with our ongoing assets that we have right now, whether they're utilized at beyond what state requirement is saying in terms of giving it up or below that. At the end of the day, we have a gap to close, and that permanent improvement levy helped us do that. Now, there is a small portion of that, Mr. Treasurer, that could be appropriated to building a new school, but of course, that is also the other community conversation that would come with that. So I just wanted to uplift that so folks have a real good context of what that is. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, President Cole. You might. I have a few questions. For the 3 options for transportation, are we able to get a cost savings amount for each of the options?
Yes, we provided that. It's in the PowerPoint, and then we also provided that the full presentation with each of those recommendations in September and October, I believe. So, and those should be on our website. We also included those recommendations in our town hall conversations. The full video from the town hall conversations are on our website, and tonight's presentation is on our website.
And that's going to be for each option or collectively?
Yes, for each option. There were cost savings that were included in each one of those options for transportation.
Okay. And my second question is, did we ever consider the inter-district open enrollment, maybe looking into that?
As
And
a
how that
poten-
would say the cost savings with that program?
As a potential cost savings?
Yes.
So I know that intra-district enrollment is certainly allowed across the district, and that's when students who do not live within the boundaries of Columbus City Schools have permission or apply to ask for permission to attend a Columbus City school, and there is a tuition or a fee that's assigned to that. Is that the intra-district enrollment that you're referring to?
I thought it was tuition free.
I'm not sure that it's tuition free. I thought there was a cost associated with intra-district, but we can
No, I
check
was-
on that.
Okay, because I'm just
When you
looking,
say
I just wondered the
inter-district, you mean from another area to us?
If you don't live in the city of Columbus.
Yes, there is a tuition.
If you don't live in the city of Columbus, you're not a Columbus City Schools taxpayer, and you have a desire to attend a Columbus City Schools, if I'm not mistaken, there is a fee associated with that.
Yes, and
Just
suburban
according-
districts make sure they get their money.
Oh, yeah.
No, according to the information we were given last meeting, it says that intra-district open enrollment allows students from outside of CCS boundaries to enroll into CCS tuition-free, FREE.
Is that our CTE?
So there's
That's IOE.
for our CTE students, if they're in a neighboring school district that does not offer CTE, they attend our school district for CTE programming because we're the Career Tech Planning District, then those students would have access to our programming and there would not be a cost associated.
I think that's the context from which that comes. And
I'm
either
not
that or
sure. I think they're two
pre-K, would
different.
Pre-K be
I
included
think
in
these are
that
two
as well?
different programs.
Pre-K, families wouldn't pay for pre-K currently.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, does that conclude your question, ma'am? Or series of questions? Do you have something else?
No, that's all.
Okay, we'll come back to you if so. Board Member Simmons, then we'll go to this fine young lady, and then we'll go to this fine young lady, and then we'll go to that fine young lady.
Thank you, President Cole. Dr. Chapman, I did want to say thank you. I think you communicated very well tonight that our deficit is roughly $100 million, and that regardless of whatever action we take on the $50 million, that we will have to continue to have the conversation regarding cuts in the future. I think that's something that in the past was a little bit under-communicated, but you certainly communicated that very well tonight. So I wanted to thank you for that. I did have, excuse me, I did just want to clarify about the dialogue regarding Career Academy. So you're saying that you're confident you'll be able to find exterior funding for those programs?
External funding,
External,
yes.
thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then I will say I do agree with Board Member Rivera that the list of schools, it's not substantial, it's not enough. It doesn't position the board not to have this conversation again next year. I think it would be good for the board to, not have to have a facilities conversation every year. And so I do think it's critical that in the future, when the board revisits the policy 7105, I believe it is, that there's a component in there that really allows the superintendent to begin the process with what your vision is for the district's footprint, because right now I don't think that is included in how these conversations have been guided. And so I think that's an opportunity for the board moving forward. I will say, could you just clarify on exactly what you mean by saying we're having FMP conversation in the spring? I didn't quite understand.
I was responding to Board Member Engel's question about balancing the need of the urgency to have the conversation to develop and invest in an integrated facilities master plan, and certainly in the timing of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we we went out for an RFP and we had the funding available to start that integrated facility master plan. But shortly after we submitted that RFP, we started having conversations about a $100 million budget gap. And so when we're having conversations like that, trying to figure out how we're going to balance our budget, that didn't seem like the right time to move forward with a proposal for $1 million to invest in a facility master planning process. And considering the fact that we have a $100 million gap, we would be in the same place that we were when we did the last FMP. We had a plan, it sat on the shelf, but we didn't have the funding to implement the plan. That last plan certainly recommended that we build new high schools, we build more middle schools so that we could realign and consolidate across the district. We didn't invest in that plan. So we have to make sure that, I don't want to, again, we want to be the best stewards of our resources. If we're moving forward with making the investment for another facilities master plan, we also have to be ready to talk about how we're going to invest and fund that plan.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. I think, that is a fair point. However, I think at times the obstacle for how the district moves forward on facilities hasn't been the lack of a plan. I think it's been board action on the plan. We've gotten plans this year from our treasurer that we did not take action on. But we've got a plan from you this year that we never took action on. And so I think the obstacle is more, what do we do with the plans we're given? But I think that's an opportunity for the board next year to grow on and to develop into a space where, maybe we grow our competency more there. But I will say in close out, yes, yes. I will say just to close out that, I do think there's opportunity for us to continue to have the dialogue around construction and how do we leverage yes, we do have a $100 million deficit, but that is our general fund. Our PI fund is not in a deficit point. And, we are freeing up some, hopefully, additional PI dollars this fall as we take action on some of these facilities, hopefully. And so, there's an opportunity to build still, and I think that's something that I would have liked this board to have dialogue around, but we weren't able to, and that's okay, but I look forward to future conversations about construction.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
So I just have a few thoughts, clarifying questions, general questions. Some of these already echo sentiments that have went around. But kind of going back to the family ambassador piece, as a community member, I think that one to me is quite concerning because I think about our space and role. It can be quite hard, even at a programmatic or organizational level, to get connected with a building. And so I know with the folks that we work with, partners, with the City of Columbus Department of Neighborhoods, we fund a lot of different folks and programs that are in the schools. I call myself an external internal, so even though I wasn't employed by CCS, I lived within Windsor STEM in my room in the 6th grade hallway for 4 years. And even having to help be that person as someone who is external, it can be hard to connect with folks. And so I just think about, as we are asking folks to rally and join and be, even more participatory and engaging with our schools, just making sure that whatever this looks like, we still create the opportunity and make it easy for folks to engage and get connected. And again, a lot of those family ambassadors are our first line of connection for a lot of folks, myself included. Again, echoing the sentiment that very excited about the possibility of folks being able to support these Career Academy investments. Again, we got a lot of awesome companies and organizations here that I hope, like you all mentioned, will step up to the plate. Going back to the bilingual engagement liaison, so again, this is just for me not knowing, is that role both internal and external facing so that those folks work with students and they also work with families to do kind of the connecting and the bridging? Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. And then the Nationwide Children's contract, and so that is just particularly for this consultant and not necessarily impacting like clinics or other resources that are school-based. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that.
Yep.
Board Member Reyes.
Hello, Dr. Chapman.
Hello.
I get this list. Unfortunately, in 2015, 2016, 2017, it's the same list. So I just want everybody to know, You want to know what this looks like and what the impact is? Go back to our history. In 2015, we cut 50 million. In 2016, we cut 50 million, and in 2017, we cut 50 million. So everything that you see here, the parent ambassadors, the bilingual engagement, almost everything she has mentioned here, plus closing schools, some of those decisions. If you want to know what the impact looks like, look at our grade card. You know, when we're looking at, to Dr. Chapman's point, what do you cut that's not going to have impact? You cut busing, some people can't get to school, right? If you don't cut liaisons, you have to cut teachers. You know, if you cut the lunch person, then, you know, we have deficits there. So if you want to see what that looks like, and we cut administration, we cut busing, we implemented busing, thankfully we had a levy that instilled a lot of these resources back, and we did see it improving. We saw the needle moving, not as fast as we wanted to. You know, so unfortunately, it's going to have an impact. And I think I'm going to go back to the facility master plan piece, Dr. Chapman, and kind of agree with Board Member Simmons and a little bit with Vera. I think one of the things that has hindered our district is that we had a master plan, we built new school, we closed schools, built new schools, we didn't finish that master plan.
Correct.
Right? And that's 2012, 2015, that era. Then we had another master plan, as you stated. And what happens, which is a good and a bad thing, right? We have to assimilate the plan, we have to get it out to the district, and this is probably not going to be a popular statement, but we plan with the children and the parents and the staff that's present at that time. By the time we're able to close or build buildings, those parents are gone, and we're making decisions again for that, and because we can't move fast enough, right? So then you know, the board gets the engagement, gets everybody rallying, but because it takes so long, then the parents and the children 4 years later, now they're mad and upset because, you know, they have gotten attached to the building or the way that we're doing things. And even then, the last past master plan, some of the decisions made to build out some of the other areas of our district, at that time, the east side population was decreasing. So we concentrated in other areas of the city to build new buildings, and then not knowing, that's the detriment, right? As we're thinking about this, you know, now we're tasked with this, right? So if we don't move fast enough to close and build buildings, we're going to continue to run into this issue where we're going to be behind. And then that's new law about potentially having to close buildings or sell buildings is going to impact us. So at some point, whether it's in the December meeting, and to your point, like our policies maybe hinder us, you know, and this is the most difficult thing to talk to about community engagement, is when you're waiting for those things to happen, those individuals, all these impacts become bigger because we're waiting so long. And I think I spoke about this before. Indiana went out and did a 2-month plan with their Indiana School District, with their community, and talked to them about, you know, when you take so long, this is the impact that happens. And they technically kind of blew up the way their district is and rebuilt it within 3 years. You know, and I think that's very difficult for Columbus City Schools to swallow, because we're so many buildings and there's a lot of emotion in our buildings, and not the number crunching, which we need them, the number crunching. So as we look at this, I think I'm with my colleagues, and if the policies is what the issue is, I think we need to address those. At the same time, we would have to address it with our community to help them understand that the longer we take to implement master plans, to implement decisions, to close buildings, to open or invest in new buildings, we're going to continue to spiral this. And to your point, Dr. Chapman, we're not going to continue to get more money from the other resources that we've seen in the past. We cut $150 million, but the state budget was in our favor, and we passed a levy. So therefore, we were able to add all these other things that you're taking on in the bond, right? So I think that's the piece that we're missing. As Board Member Rivera said, is like, what does it look like in 3 years, and what are those decisions we have to make, and we have to make quickly, and how do we help our community understand that you're going to be very close to that elementary school that your child is getting a good education, but I'm hopeful that if we do it right, that child's going to end up in just as good of an elementary with the bigger plan. So I don't know if we can do that in 2 or 3 weeks, Dr. Chapman. It could be for the, it could be more so for the next board iteration. But I mean, again, if we don't do it, if we don't have that conversation, if we can't sit somewhere and say, we've got to look at everything on the option and then put everything back on the monopoly board, these boards, these iterations, this community is going to continue to suffer this, I don't even know what abuse, if the right word is. Again, I've been here 17 years, and I feel like every 4 years, I'm cutting $50 million, and I'm having the same discussion about closing buildings and investing in new buildings, and seeing the hurt of cutting staff or closing somebody's building. And if we don't act fast enough, so this is congratulations to the new board members. We're going to continue to see this, so I don't know what that means, again, for the next 3 weeks, Dr. Chapman, but it may mean, to board, that we go back to Board Member Ingalls, and we've already moved one of our policies, in order to do some of the things that we need to do. If you come back to us and say, this is the way the district could look in 3 years, and this is what I would need today, and we have data and results to prove it, then this iteration would have to make a very hard decision in 3 weeks. Otherwise, then the next iteration of the board would have to do it perhaps in the first quarter of next year.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. Mrs. Quay.
I don't know how to follow that.
Speak your mind. That's what we're here for.
Because mine is more emotional and not so technical as yours. I'm absolutely in this meeting exhausted because 2 days ago I spent 4 hours at Johnson Park Middle School in a program where they were asking the children to dive into themselves. It started out with just fun. We just ran around the room and acted silly. But then toward the end of the program, they asked the kids more in-depth questions. Toward the end of the program, they were asking them, how many of you have family members who have children or have been in prison? I don't know, 25 of them stood up. How many of you have family members who are on drugs? Several of them stood up. Then they got to the questions of how many of you have had so many problems that you thought about committing suicide? 10 of them stood up. I did not realize, and I've been in a lot of my schools in my district, in my area, that our children do have these problems, and we're talking about having to make these cuts, and I understand what we have to. But what do we do? It's gut-wrenching. And I'm exhausted from that session, only to go to the next day to Yorktown Middle School. And I'm sitting there in a report card conference, which I do many of those, and sitting across from a child who's from Mexico. And he says he doesn't even want to show me his card. It's all folded up, and he hands it to me, and he says, I don't want to show you this. And I said, no, baby, show me the card. And he's got D's and F's, and he said, in broken English, that's not what I do in Mexico. These aren't my grades in Mexico. I said, well, baby, what's the deal? I can't speak English. I said, of course, you can't do it because you don't understand. So these are the things that, being in the community, I see every day. And I guess what I'm saying is that maybe sometimes, I'm tired, guys, maybe sometimes we need to think outside the box maybe a little bit. And one of the things I wanted to ask the mayor last night when I was in the commission meeting with all the commissioners there, is there some sort of a way that the city and the schools can work together? I don't see that connection. I don't see that connection. I know there's a Department of Education with the city, but where the city is doing well, they're starting to do housing, all of this. All these people are going to come in. They're going to have children. They're going to go to Columbus City Schools. What do we do? I know we get state funds, they get local funds, and they have state. Let's figure out a way to work together. There's a New American Department with the city. There's a Department of Education. There's a Public Utilities that can throw some mulch on the ground for us and do some painting. Why isn't this working together? If we don't have, if we can't refresh our library budget, we got a daggum Columbus Metropolitan Library System that is one of the best in the nation. We can't somehow get our books refreshed. It's frustrating, and I'm exhausted, and I will work as hard as I can to make these liaisons happen. Quay's tired.
I hear your heart on that, most assuredly. And thank you all for the service and the experiences that you all use and bring forth on a daily basis in ways that we don't get to see and hear a lot at the table. So I thank you for that. One of the things I will uplift about Columbus City Schools in the city of Columbus, you heard me earlier allude to the idea that when it's time for the community to step up, that happens. Yeah. That happened during COVID. We needed Chromebooks. We got them. We needed support with hotspots. We got them. Just recently, our families needed support because of SNAP benefits at tremendous detriment with the longest government shutdown in American history. The city and us stepped up. On a day-to-day basis, there are schools throughout the district, Georgian Heights is one of them, that we have a rich partnership, a rich relationship with recreations and parks in a way that brings their staff into our building to watch over lunch and, support teachers being able to take breaks and, have planning time and do all of that in a way that supports them in the actual building. We're still continuing conversation and dialogue that's tied to land swaps and tied to a myriad of things that we're planning. Even in the tax abatement space, there's been a conversation that is under development right now that could benefit Columbus City Schools. So I hear your heart, but it's important that at this point in time, we set a precedent to say, hey, this is what's going on. Your concern and your heart space is under very serious, consideration. It is. But this is the opportunity we take to say, well, wait a minute, there's some incredible things that are actually happening. So I wanted to make sure I uplifted that in the process.
And colleague, can I for a quick second?
Yes, please.
But to Ms. Barnes, to your point, that relationship should be much better, and not just the city. I appreciate my colleague for highlighting all the good work that is happening. But to your point, it's not happening consistently enough. There's the business community, they help, but there has to be more consistency. Not just when there's fires, not when we're cutting millions of dollars and it's a presidential election year where you want to come take pictures with our students. Let's call it what it is. So the truth of the matter is that we're in this room right now, and I don't see none of my other elected official partners. And I'm not talking about all of them, because quite a few of them, they fight for us every single day, especially in that State House. And you see the same clusters of those folks at every one of our town halls. But the truth of the matter is, as my colleague said at the beginning of this meeting, we can't figure this out by ourselves. We need every industry, corporate partners, nonprofit partners, faith-based. It can't just be when the smoke is happening that folks want to come together to rally. There's plenty of money, plenty of strategic partners, plenty of education in this city. This is the capital, the largest district in the state of Ohio. We can't figure out how to right-size our district. This is not complicated. But folks have to come to the table, ego to the side, and let's get it done. I graduated from this district 22 years ago. I'm still sitting in the same buildings with the same problems. So I respect the fact that some work is being done, but it's not being done consistently. It's not being done efficiently, and we need to be partners, true partners. Collective impact can't continue to be a buzzword. Like, are we doing this or not?
I thank you for that. Are there any additional questions relative to tonight's staff update and set of recommendations? Yes, sir.
Since we're talking about all options on the table, and this might actually be something the board would have to decide, but I do just want to point out that in some of the maps that we have, when I look at the district, it's non-contiguous. And so I do wonder if a serious option, given where we're at, is considering what we do with these parcels and potentially annexing them back to districts they're next to, so we don't have to worry about transporting students out of those districts. We don't have to worry about building schools in those areas, right? Because some of these areas are very small, and I think as we try to think about really using our resources wisely, I think it's hard to have some of these parcels that are islands effectively, and how we integrate them in the larger system. So I know it's a crazy idea.
But it's not though. If we start to change the rules about property tax,
They'll change the rules. They'll move the
then
goalposts.
that's actually that should go on the consideration list, right? Because, that's why, and part of why the map looks like that is because of public policy that this district did not make itself. When, we were broken up and in win-win and we were in after desegregation, and you see those pockets of what happened. And so we're reeling from that as well. But I think that all options should be on the table. I think that's a really smart thing to consider because we are huge. Our land mass is huge, and we do serve those pockets. And when we look at do we need to build or where we need to build, we're outside of Tucson. I think there's a giant map behind this screen here, actually, if anybody wants to look at it. But where those populations start to increase, we are going to have to build a school, like in New Albany, right? And so we really have to think about that as a strategy. So I don't think that that's crazy at all, Martin. And you're one of my best committee members, all of you are. I love you all so much, and thank you all for being here and just sharing. This is hard, and part of it is, and as Ramona has said, her being in this position for 17 years, finishing up, sorry that this is where we have to finish for you.
That's how I started.
That's how you started. It's a cycle. And it's a cycle and a structure and a system that unfortunately we are in on purpose. And to Board Member Vieira's point, it is going to take all of our entire community to figure this out in a state of red as a blue community and city. And I hate to say it like that because public education should not be political, but it is. And we know right now we're in this budget situation not because we did this, but because our state house did this, because our federal government is doing this. And we know our community stepped up a few years ago and supported at your sacrifice, at our sacrifice, to give our students all of the things that Ms. Barnes talked about, trying to help and be supportive of social emotional needs. But we do have to do better. And it is so frustrating. I mean, I've been on this board, I'm in my second term, and I wish we were further. I wish we were further. I push every day to be further in all of the things, building, consolidation, getting a vision on paper, trying to tell our story, fighting as hard as we can against those that really do not want us to exist and educate our students. All of us are fighting, but it is just incredibly frustrating and hurtful. As a mom, I have 2 kids in this district, as an alumni, as a daughter of a teacher in this district, as a community member, as someone who has been a volunteer in our schools and sees our kids and our families and our students every day fighting. The only way, again, to Board Member Ver's point, the only way we're going to do this is together. And to Board Member Ingles' point, these decisions are hard.
Bless you.
This will hurt our kids. And the point is, how do we come out this effectuating our community values about what we in this city want our education system to be, look like, so that we can deliver that experience for our children. That is what this board is supposed to be doing. And so I encourage the community, because I know we're going to get a lot of emails after this, and we need them. I think that part of it is we heard a couple of, I don't want to say positions because they're not, but we heard a couple of titles like family ambassadors and bilingual engagement liaisons. These are real people doing really important work. But because we couldn't talk about counselors and social workers and teachers and custodians, because we have other processes, we can't tell you specifically what that looks like right now. We talk about our transportation and getting our kids to school, but we have to talk about when they get there, are we educating them? Yes. This is a huge value gut check for our community right now, and we have to decide what it is we need to do with our limited resources. And the truth is, based on purpose, what education is right now, schools are everything. We are everything. And we can't be everything. And so we do need our community. We do need these supports. There are so many wonderful nonprofits and other groups that do this stuff on a daily basis. We have to come together and figure it out together. And I'm sorry I went on a little, but this is hard. And I have to vote. We have to vote. And so it's about this community to what President Cole was saying at the very beginning. Come to us with ideas. Come to us with thoughtful ways to work through this problem and thinking outside the box as well. We need to hear your values. We need to understand what it is you want us to do as our community. When we sit at the table in December voting on and figuring out these options, whether or not we just take $50 million from staff, or whether or not we look at some cost savings in transportation, whether or not we're going to give COTA passes versus no high school, whether or not we're going to look at closing more buildings, whether or not when we talk about staff, is it things like our social workers you already told us we needed in our levy. We need to understand, because at the end of the day, this has to happen, or we are headed for insolvency and the state takes us over.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank everyone today, and as we continue, and please get involved, please communicate, reach out, come to our engagement sessions, come talk to us. If you want us to come talk to you, tell us, we will. But these decisions are hard, and they are not just the 7 of us, they are all of us. So I just want to thank everyone for being here, thank our community members who sit here and help us think through this, because you do bring valuable insight. But it is hard.
All right. So we are now at the stage of our meeting, and we do have joint committee quorum in the room. So again, I'm thankful that all of you are here. So is there a motion to move forward from the joint committee to uplift this staffing set of recommendations and plan to the board for further consideration? Is there a motion and a second?
Mr. Williams, we need the list, please, of all committee members.
He's going to call it.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to do that, and we needed 13, but we have 14 here right now. So is there a motion to accept this staffing report with recommendations for reductions between between non-personnel and personnel to move up to the board for further consideration? Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is seconded.
Discussion,
And,
President?
yes, sir.
Discussion when you get a moment. Oh, now?
It's been motioned and seconded.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. Dr. Chapman, I did just want to clarify, on slide 29, the positions listed, the 50 central office, 4 school-based administrators, the 275 certificate, the 116 classified. That is, what dollar amount worth of positions is that? Because is that, I understand this is built around the board, not assuming the board takes action on the transportation facility. The transportation facilities or the lottery recommendation.
Yes, if we could have our team pull up slide number 31. It includes a summary of all the positions. This
Oh, thank
next
you.
slide, it includes the non-personnel as well as personnel.
So you can take a picture, and this is now up on board docs
And our website.
and our website. So our director of communications actually forwarded that to me as well.
Thank you. And then my second question is, I wanted to get a bit more clarity on the things that are on the future considerations slide. I assume future consideration means next fall, when you imagine we'll be having this conversation again, superintendent, board level, right?
So we are working to price out what these recommendations, one, the feasibility of implementing them, and two, what cost savings they would yield. But we were not able to include those in this presentation. So these are future considerations and areas for additional savings.
Okay, thank you. I will say some of the things that are on the current list, like the family ambassadors and reducing funding for the Career Academy program, seem to be more inherently connected to your vision for the district, rather than things on this list like selling the WCBE radio station, right-sizing administrative teams for all board direct reports, closure and sale of administrative buildings. Those things seem less connected to your vision and less of a, like they would present less of an obstacle for achieving the board goals. You know, we talked about the graduation goal a couple weeks ago, and directly connected to that is the Career Academy. It's about exciting our kids, our children about coming to school. And so I would certainly encourage us to maybe reevaluate what we take action on and when, because I think there's some other opportunities here.
Thank you, Board Member Simmons. The challenge is that those recommendations require additional time to implement and would not be able to impact the FY27 budget. And so, again, we're going to continue to work on moving forward those recommendations for additional budget savings. But certainly, we have to be mindful of which decisions that we've already made that will actually impact the FY27 budget cycle.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Certainly, that's good information to have. I appreciate that.
And just as a FYI too, WCBE actually is a part of our Career Academies piece, even as it stands right now. So there are further considerations to be made, some of which Board Member Simmons and new board members will actually may have to be considered as early as January through March, as alluded earlier, the first quarter of next year. All right, so with that, it's been motioned and seconded. Can we call the roll?
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Vice President Adair?
Yes.
President Cole?
Yes. So motion passes with the board.
Ms. Barnes? Yes.
Mr. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Miranda?
Yes.
Did I miss someone? Nope, motion passes. All right, thank you all. Thank you all so very much. Again, in closing, I know how difficult this conversation has been. You all have done yeoman's work the past 3 months now to ensure that we had rich, substantive conversation, and the board has been armed with information and equipped to be able to make the best decision we possibly can under the current circumstances. Please get home safely, get yourselves a plate if you have not, and we'll see you again.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Hearing no objection?
Hearing no objections?
Second.
We are closed.